The room was silent, cold and bright. A single beam of white light fell across a metal bed. On that bed, a human lay motionless, his body weak and bruised. His name was Ethan Cole, a pilot from Earth. Lost in the dark space after his ship was hit by a strange storm, he slowly opened his eyes, blinking against the brightness around him. He saw strange shapes moving, tall figures with blue skin and silver eyes. They were speaking in soft voices, a language he could not understand. Fear rose inside him as he realized he was not on Earth anymore. He tried to move, but heavy metal cuffs held his wrists and ankles tight. The sound of chains echoed through the chamber like a cold whisper. Ethan's heart pounded, his breath quick and uneven. He could hear machines humming softly, lights blinking above him. The air smelled strange, clean, metallic, almost artificial. He looked around and saw the walls glowing faintly, filled with alien symbols and strange energy lines. One of the blue-skinned beings stepped closer, holding a crystal scanner above his body. It beeped loudly, the light on it flashing red. The creature's eyes widened, and it said something in panic to the others. They all turned toward him, whispering faster, glancing at Ethan with fear and wonder. Ethan struggled against the chains. "Where am I? Who are you people?" He shouted, but they didn't answer. They just stared at him like he was something impossible, something forbidden. Then the doors at the far end of the room slid open with a deep hum. All the blue-skinned beings bowed their heads. A woman entered, tall and graceful, wearing a long silver robe with golden patterns. Her skin shimmered like moonlight, and her eyes glowed with a strange, soft blue. Every step she took made the air feel heavy. Even Ethan could feel the power around her. She was no ordinary alien. She was royalty. The nurse beside Ethan bowed deeply, her voice trembling. "Your Highness, we found him unconscious near the border of the Forbidden Zone." The princess looked at Ethan quietly for a moment, her expression unreadable. "What is he?" she asked in a calm, royal voice. "Human," the nurse replied, "from the lost planet Earth." According to his memories, the princess frowned, her eyes scanning the data on the floating hologram. "Why is the system marking him as royal?" she asked slowly. The nurse hesitated. "That's the strange part, Your Highness. His DNA matches your own lineage." For a second, the room went completely silent. Even the machine stopped humming. The princess took a step forward, her golden robe brushing the floor. She placed her hand over the scanner and whispered a command. The lights above Ethan turned red again, glowing brighter than before. A line of alien text appeared in the air. Floating between them, it said, "Royal air detected. Fusion host identified." The princess gasped softly, her hand trembling. "That cannot be," she whispered. "A human carrying my air?" Ethan looked up at her in confusion. "You're what? What are you talking about?" he asked, his voice shaking. The princess didn't answer, her eyes wide with disbelief and fear. She turned to her guards and ordered, "Leave us. All of you." The others hesitated, but her tone left no room for argument. Soon the room was empty except for her and Ethan. Ethan pulled weakly at his chains. "Please." "I don't understand," he said. The princess walked closer, her eyes studying him carefully. "There are stories," she said softly, "old tales of a being from another world, one who would carry the royal blood and bring balance to our empire. But no one ever believed it could be true." Ethan shook his head. "You're saying I'm part of your prophecy? That's crazy." She gave a small, sad smile. "It seems the universe has a cruel sense of humor." She touched a crystal pendant on her neck, and a glowing blue light surrounded Ethan. He could feel warmth spreading through his body. Images flashed in his mind. Stars, planets, an alien throne, a child glowing with energy. He gasped, unable to move. "What did you do to me?" he shouted. The princess stepped back, shocked by what she saw. "It's true," she whispered. "You are carrying my royal heir, the bloodline of the stars." Ethan froze, trying to process her words. "That's impossible," he said, his voice breaking. "I'm human, I can't." Before he could finish, the chamber lights flashed red, alarms blaring through the palace. The princess turned sharply toward the door. "They know," she said under her breath. "The council knows about you." She looked back at Ethan, her eyes full of urgency. "They will come for you, human, and if they catch you, you will die before sunrise." Ethan stared at her, still chained, still trembling. "Then help me," he said quietly for the first time. The alien princess looked uncertain. Then she reached out her hand and whispered, Hold still. A bright light burst from her palm. The chains melted like fire in water. The alarms grew louder. Voices echoed outside the door. The princess turned to him and said, "Run when I say." Ethan nodded slowly, still dazed, still afraid. And as the door opened with soldiers rushing in, the princess raised her hand and the world exploded in blue light. The blue light faded slowly, leaving behind smoke and silence. Ethan gasped for breath, his heart pounding. The room was destroyed, the walls cracked and burning. He looked around in confusion. Searching for the princess, she stood a few feet away, her robe torn, her glowing eyes dim. The guards were lying unconscious, the doors melted from the blast. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Only the faint hum of machines filled the air. "Come with me," she said firmly, her voice low but steady. Ethan followed, his legs shaking, his mind spinning. They moved through narrow corridors lit by flickering lights. Everywhere he looked, he saw strange alien architecture. Tall walls made of crystal and silver. Symbols glowed faintly across the floors as they ran. "Where are we going?" Ethan asked breathlessly. "To a safe place," the princess replied. "They will hunt us if we stay." They entered a secret lift that descended deep beneath the palace. Ethan watched the alien symbols pass by like rivers of light. He tried to speak, but the words stuck in his throat. Finally, he whispered, "What did you mean when you said I carry your heir?" The princess turned to him, her eyes serious. "The royal bloodline is not like yours," she said. "It is energy, ancient and alive, passed through chosen vessels, but no human has ever been chosen before." Ethan frowned, trying to understand. "So I'm some kind of incubator?" he asked quietly. Her expression softened. "No, not incubator," she said. "More like a guardian. The heir's essence is merging with your DNA, protecting itself through you." Ethan laughed weakly, the sound full of disbelief. "That's impossible. I'm just a pilot. I don't even believe in this kind of thing." The princess looked away. "Impossible things are what change worlds," she whispered. The lift stopped with a gentle sound. They stepped into a hidden laboratory filled with glowing tanks and machines. A tall alien in a white suit turned toward them, his silver eyes sharp. "Princess Lyra," he said, bowing slightly. "I did not expect you to bring him here." "This is Dr. Zareth," Lyra said to Ethan. "One of the few who can be trusted." Zareth examined Ethan with curiosity, scanning him with a floating orb of light. "Fascinating," he murmured. "His body is adapting faster than expected. The royal energy is stabilizing, but the process is dangerous." Ethan backed away nervously. "Dangerous how?" Zareth looked at Lyra, then at Ethan. "If the fusion completes too quickly, your body might not survive, but if it succeeds, you will become something far greater than either human or alien." Ethan shook his head. "I don't want to become anything, I just want to go home." Lyra's voice grew soft. "There is no way back to your world, not yet." Her words hit him like ice. He felt the floor tilt under his feet, his heart sinking. "Then what do I do?" he asked, almost whispering. Lyra looked at him with gentle sadness. "You live, and you protect what you carry." Suddenly, a loud sound echoed through the tunnels. Zareth's eyes widened. "They found us," he said quickly. Lyra grabbed Ethan's arm. "We must leave now." But Ethan froze, fear and confusion swirling inside him. "Why are they chasing me? What do they want?" He shouted. "They want to erase you," Lyra said coldly. "To stop the prophecy before it begins." "Prophecy?" Ethan repeated, his voice trembling. "Yes," she said. "A legend older than our empire. It tells of a child born of two worlds who will end the cycle of war and unite the stars." Ethan's pulse raced. "You think that's me?" "That's insane," Lyra stared at him, her voice steady but full of emotion. "Insane or not, the universe chose you." Before Ethan could answer, the walls shook violently. Blinding lights filled the lab as alien soldiers stormed in, their weapons glowing red. Zareth shouted something and pressed a hidden switch. A section of the floor opened, revealing a dark tunnel below. Lyra pulled Ethan toward it. "Go!" she cried. Zareth stayed behind, raising a shield barrier to block the guards. He looked at Lyra one last time and said, "Protect him, princess. He is the key." They slid down into the tunnel, landing in a lower passage filled with mist. The sound of explosions echoed above them. Ethan could barely breathe. "We left him," he said. Lyra's voice was soft but firm. "He knew the cost." They kept moving through the darkness until they reached a small transport pod hidden underground. Lyra pressed her hand on the scanner, and the pod door opened with a hiss. She turned to Ethan. "Once we leave, there's no going back." He looked into her eyes, saw both fear and strength there. "I don't have a choice, do I?" he said. She shook her head slowly. "No, you don't." The pod lifted into the air, shaking as it broke through layers of metal and soil. Through the glass window, Ethan saw the alien city above, shining towers, floating ships and glowing skies. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Alarms echoed through the distance, red lights flashing across the horizon. Lyra looked at him and said quietly, "The truth is impossible, Ethan Cole, but you are living it." He turned to her, voice low. "Then tell me everything. From the beginning." Lyra stared out the window, her expression unreadable. "In time," she said. "When you're ready," the pod disappeared into the clouds, leaving the burning palace behind far below. The High Council watched from the shadows. Their leader, Counselor Vera, narrowed his eyes and whispered, "The Heir lives within the human, but not for long." His words echoed like a threat across the stars. And somewhere deep inside Ethan's chest, the strange light pulsed again, stronger, brighter, alive. The pod raced through the stormy sky, shaking under waves of red lightning. Ethan gripped the seat, his knuckles white, his heart pounding fast. He could see alien ships chasing behind them, bright beams of blue energy cutting through the clouds. Princess Lyra's face was calm, but her hands moved quickly over the glowing controls. Her voice was steady. "Hold on, human. We are entering restricted airspace." Ethan could barely hear her over the sound of thunder and the ship alarms. "What does that mean?" he shouted. "It means no one is supposed to survive here," she replied quietly. The pod plunged downward, cutting through a storm of glowing dust and flashing light. Ethan felt his stomach twist as the craft spun sideways. Outside, giant floating rocks drifted through the air like broken moons. They were surrounded by energy currents that twisted space itself. Ethan's head hit the wall, pain flashing behind his eyes. Then suddenly everything went silent. The pod stopped shaking. They had fallen into a strange calm zone, hidden beneath the clouds. Lyra looked out the window, scanning the horizon. "This is the Valley of Shadows," she said. "No signal reaches here. We are safe for now." Ethan leaned back. Breathing hard, he looked at her, sweat dripping down his face. "Safe? That's what you call this?" he said. Lyra gave a small smile. "You're alive, aren't you?" He laughed weakly, shaking his head. "Barely." The pod landed on a rocky plain filled with glowing crystals and silent winds. Strange alien plants shimmered in the dark, releasing blue mist that sparkled like stars. Ethan stepped out slowly, the air cold and sharp. He could feel the ground pulsing beneath his feet, almost alive. Lyra followed, holding a small energy scanner that projected a map in the air. "There's an ancient station nearby," she said. "We can rest there." They began to walk across the silent field, their steps echoing softly as they moved. Ethan noticed something strange. The closer he got to Lyra, the stronger a faint light glowed under his skin. It spread across his hands and chest like veins of fire. He stopped, staring in disbelief. "What's happening to me?" he asked. Lyra turned and looked at him carefully. "The fusion is growing," she said. "The Heir's energy is becoming part of you." Ethan took a step back. "You make it sound like I'm turning into one of you." Lyra's eyes softened. "Perhaps something beyond both of us," she said quietly. They reached the edge of a large rock formation shaped like a broken temple. Massive alien statues stood half buried in the dirt. Their faces worn by time. Lyra pressed her hand against a wall, and a hidden door opened with a low hum. Inside, ancient machines glowed faintly, still alive after centuries. "This place was built by our ancestors," Lyra said, "long before our empire learned to hate humans." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "You've met humans before?" Lyra nodded slowly. "Once, 1,000 years ago, when our worlds were still connected." Her voice grew soft. "But something happened, something that broke everything." Ethan looked around, touching one of the glowing panels. "So your people feared humans ever since?" he asked. Lyra shook her head. "They feared what happens when we stand together." Her words hung in the air. Deep and strange, Ethan sat down. Trying to calm his racing mind, he looked up at her. "You said I'm carrying your heir, but how? How can that even happen?" Lyra sat beside him, her eyes reflecting the blue lights. The royal energy seeks balance, she said. It searches for a vessel strong enough to hold both light and chaos. It found you because your kind carry something rare. Pure will, Ethan laughed softly. So I got chosen because I'm stubborn? Lyra smiled faintly. Exactly, she said for a moment. There was silence between them. The air felt warm despite the cold wind outside. But then the ground began to tremble, the lights flickered, and a deep rumble echoed through the cavern. Lyra jumped to her feet. No, they've tracked us, she shouted. Ethan stood quickly, panic rising in his chest. How is that possible? You said this place was hidden? Lyra's voice grew tense. It was, but the air's power must have revealed us. The door burst open in a flash of red light. Alien soldiers stormed in, their armor gleaming, weapons glowing with deadly energy. Ethan grabbed a fallen weapon from the floor, though he barely knew how to use it. Lyra stepped in front of him, her eyes blazing bright blue. Stay behind me, she said, her voice like thunder. Energy erupted from her hands, throwing the first line of soldiers backward. The air filled with smoke and light. Ethan fired blindly, hitting one of the attackers, the recoil almost knocking him down. More soldiers poured in, shouting in their alien tongue. Lyra raised her arms, forming a shimmering shield of blue energy around them both. Ethan, she shouted. The tunnel behind the console, go. He hesitated. I'm not leaving you. You must, she cried. The prophecy needs you alive. Ethan's heart ached, but he nodded. He ran toward the tunnel as the ceiling began to crack. Behind him he saw Lyra glowing brighter, her power shaking the ground. She turned and met his eyes one last time. Find the ancient city, she said softly. Only there can the truth be revealed. Then a blinding explosion filled the temple, throwing Ethan into the darkness below. He fell through layers of dust and light. When he finally stopped, everything was quiet. He opened his eyes slowly and saw stars above him through a broken roof. He whispered her name, Lyra, but only the echo of his voice answered. Far above, alien ships circled the sky, searching, hunting. Ethan clenched his fists, his veins glowing faintly in the dark. I'll find you, he whispered, and I'll find the truth. The wind carried his words through the night as the war for the air began. Dust floated through the broken air. Glowing softly in the thin light, Ethan lay still among the ruins, his body aching, his mind dizzy. The last thing he remembered was Lyra's voice telling him to find the ancient city. Now there was only silence, the cold wind whispering across cracked stone. He pushed himself up slowly, coughing as smoke filled his lungs above him. The ceiling of the temple was gone, replaced by a wide sky of violet clouds. Strange lights moved between the clouds like rivers of fire. It was quiet, almost peaceful, but beneath the calm he felt something alive watching him. He stood, brushing the dust from his torn jacket. A faint blue glow ran beneath his skin again, pulsing in rhythm with his heartbeat. Every time it flashed, he felt warmth, strength, and an echo of something inside his mind, a whisper, distant but clear, a soft voice saying his name, Ethan. He turned quickly, but there was no one. The voice came again, this time from within. Follow the light. The valley will show the truth. He took a deep breath and started walking toward the horizon. The landscape was vast and strange. Filled with tall crystal spires and floating stones, mist covered the ground, and every sound echoed far away as if the air itself remembered. After hours of walking, Ethan reached the edge of a deep valley down below. Rivers of blue light flowed like liquid glass. In the distance stood an ancient gate carved into a mountain. Shining faintly under the alien sun, it looked old, older than anything he had seen on this world. The whispers in his head grew louder, guiding him downward. His body ached, but the strange energy inside him pushed him forward. At the valley floor, he found massive machines half buried in rock. Their designs were similar to the palace technology but far more complex. Ethan touched one of the broken panels, and it suddenly came alive. Holograms flickered around him, showing scenes of alien history, battles, peace, destruction. He saw a human figure standing beside an alien queen, holding a glowing child between them. It looked exactly like the story Lyra had told him. The air between worlds, he whispered. The machine responded to his voice. Glowing brighter, a soft tone filled the air, and the voice spoke again. Welcome, guardian of the air. Ethan stepped back in shock. What are you talking about? He asked. The machine replied calmly. The air is awakening. And you are the chosen vessel. Ethan's heart raced. He felt the same warmth spreading through him again. The blue light inside him pulsed faster, and for a moment he could see visions. Lyra standing before a great council, her eyes full of fire, Dr. Zareth facing guards, sacrificing himself, and the High Counselor Vera speaking to an army. The heir must not survive. Ethan grabbed his head. The visions burning bright, he fell to his knees, shouting, "Stop! Please stop!" The images vanished and silence returned. He sat there breathing heavily, sweat dripping down his face. For a long moment he said nothing. Then a sound echoed behind him, under footsteps. Soft but certain, Ethan turned, ready to fight. But instead of soldiers, he saw a shadowy figure stepping from the mist. It was tall, wearing dark armor that shimmered like smoke. A mask covered its face, and its voice was deep and calm. "You should not be here, human," it said. Ethan raised his weapon. "Who are you?" "I am the keeper of the valley," the figure replied. "And you carry a forbidden light," Ethan hesitated. "I'm just trying to survive," he said. The keeper tilted his head. "Survival is no longer your path, Guardian. Your arrival has awakened the Echo Core, and the universe is watching." Ethan lowered his weapon slowly, confused and exhausted. "Then help me understand," he said. "Why me? Why this?" The keeper's eyes glowed faintly behind the mask. "Because humans hold the spark of balance, and the royal line chose you for it." He gestured toward the mountain gate. "Beyond that door lies the truth, but once you enter, there is no turning back." Ethan looked at the gate, huge. Silent, covered in ancient symbols, he felt the air's pulse inside him, like a heartbeat calling from the other side. He swallowed hard. "If the truth is what will save Lyra, then I'm ready." The keeper stepped aside, his voice echoing like thunder. "Then step forward, Guardian of the Air." Ethan walked slowly toward the gate. Each step heavier than the last, the ground trembled, and the air shimmered with strange light. As he reached the center, the symbols began to move. Forming patterns of fire and water, the gate opened, releasing a rush of warm wind that smelled like stars and rain. Inside was a massive chamber filled with floating crystals and energy streams. At the center stood a circular pool of light. Glowing like a living sun, Ethan stepped closer, feeling its pull. The whispers in his mind grew louder, merging into a single voice, the air's voice. "Ethan, our journey begins here." He touched the light and visions flooded his mind again. Lyra's face appeared, her eyes full of hope. Her voice echoing softly. "Find me in the ancient city of Alaris, before the council finds you." The vision faded, and Ethan found himself alone once more. But now he knew his path. He turned toward the dark valley, determination burning in his eyes. The keeper watched silently, his voice soft. "Destiny has chosen, and the war has begun." Ethan looked up at the stars and whispered, "I'm coming." "Lyra!" The mountain gate closed behind him with a deep sound like a heartbeat, and the Valley of Echoes fell silent once again, holding its secrets for the next dawn. The sun rose over the alien horizon, a swirl of blue and gold light spreading across the valley. Ethan walked through the quiet ruins, his boots crunching on the crystal dust beneath him. He had spent the night inside the echo chamber, trying to understand what he had seen. The memories, the whispers, the vision of Lyra, they all felt real, too real. He could still hear her voice in his mind, gentle and desperate. "Find me before the council does." That single sentence burned inside him like a promise. He followed the path marked by the glowing symbols. They led him through narrow canyons and bridges of stone that floated above deep cracks of blue fire. Strange creatures moved in the distance, transparent and glowing. Like living smoke, Ethan's energy flickered again under his skin, the air's light responding to the valley's power. He didn't know how long he had walked when the sound of engines filled the air. He looked up and saw alien ships gliding low. Searching, the High Council was not far behind. He hid among the rocks, heart racing, watching as the ship scanned the ground with red beams. He whispered to himself, "I need to move faster." By nightfall, he reached the edge of the valley. There stood a large metallic archway half buried in the earth. A control panel blinked weakly beside it, covered in dust. Ethan brushed it clean and touched the glowing symbol. The archway hummed and opened into a tunnel of white light. He took a deep breath. "Alaris, here I come." Then he stepped through. When the light faded, he was standing in a massive underground city. Tall silver towers rose from the ground like blades. The air shimmered with soft golden energy. It was quiet, but not empty. He could feel thousands of life signals around him. Hidden behind walls, then he saw her. Princess Lyra stood near a fountain of glowing water. Surrounded by robed figures, for a moment Ethan froze. Her presence pulled at something deep inside him. She looked stronger, her aura brighter, her eyes sharper than before when she saw him. Her expression softened with relief. "Ethan," she whispered, "you found me." He ran to her, ignoring the pain in his legs. "I thought you were gone," he said. His voice shaking, Lyra smiled faintly. "I almost was," she replied. "But the valley's energy shielded me from the blast." She reached out and touched his arm, feeling the light beneath his skin. "It's growing," she said. "The Heir's bond is nearly complete." Ethan nodded, though confusion clouded his mind. "I saw visions," he said. "The past, your people, even humans. What does it mean?" Lyra hesitated, then gestured for him to follow. "There is something you need to see." They entered a large chamber deep beneath the city. In the center was a massive crystal sphere filled with swirling light. Lyra placed her hand on it and images appeared. Memories of long ago. Humans and aliens living together, building cities among the stars, then war, betrayal, and the separation of the worlds. Ethan watched in silence, realizing the truth. "We were never enemies," he said softly. Lyra nodded. "No, but fear turned us into monsters." Before she could say more, a cold voice echoed through the chamber. "Well spoken, princess," it said. "But too late to matter." Ethan turned sharply, and his heart froze. Dr. Zareth stepped from the shadows. Alive but changed, his once kind eyes now glowed red. His body marked by black energy lines. Lyra gasped. "Zareth, you're alive?" He smiled bitterly. "Alive, yes, but not by choice." He raised his hand and the machines around them hummed. "The council offered me survival. In exchange for you," Lyra stepped forward, anger flashing in her eyes. "You betrayed us," she said, her voice trembling with rage. Zareth's expression was cold. "I betrayed nothing, princess. I only chose to live." Ethan stepped between them. "You don't have to do this," Zareth laughed. "Oh, but I do." He pressed a control on his wrist, and energy barriers rose around the chamber, trapping them. Ethan tried to run, but an invisible force threw him to the ground. Pain shot through his body, the blue light under his skin flickering wildly. Zareth pointed at him. "The Heir's power belongs to the council, not to a human thief," Lyra screamed. "Stop!" She unleashed a wave of energy that shook the floor. Zareth blocked it easily, his new dark power consuming hers. "You can't win," he said. "The council gave me the power of the void." Ethan struggled to his feet, blood running from his mouth. The Heir's voice whispered in his head again. "Do not fear the darkness, use it." He closed his eyes and focused, feeling the energy burning inside him. The light burst from his body in a flash of blue and gold. Zareth stumbled back, shocked. "What? What are you?" he hissed. Ethan's voice was calm and steady. "Something you can't control." The two powers collided, shaking the entire city. Energy crackled through the air, tearing apart walls and floors. Lyra ran to Ethan's side, joining her power with his. Their light merged, bright as a star. Zareth screamed as the energy overwhelmed him. The dark power around him shattered like glass. When the light faded, Zareth lay on the ground. Unconscious but alive, Lyra fell to her knees, breathing hard. Ethan knelt beside her, placing a hand on her shoulder. "It's over," he said softly. She looked up at him, her eyes filled with sorrow. "No," she whispered, "it's only begun." Above them, the city alarms began to sound. Lyra looked toward the surface, fear returning to her voice. "The council knows we are here," she said. "They will send everything they have." Ethan clenched his fists, his veins glowing bright again. "Then we fight," he said. Lyra met his gaze and nodded. "The war for the Heir has begun," she said quietly. And together, they turned toward the rising light of the alien sun, ready to face the storm that was coming. The sky above Elaris burned red. Flashes of light streaked across the horizon as alien warships descended through the clouds. Ethan stood on a high platform beside Princess Lyra, watching the storm of fire grow closer. The ground trembled as the first explosions hit the edge of the city. Lyra's voice was calm but full of sorrow. "The council has declared us enemies of the Empire," she said. Ethan clenched his fists, feeling the Heir's energy pulse through his veins like fire. "Then we'll make them regret it," he said quietly. Below them, Thousands of alien civilians rushed through the glowing streets. Seeking shelter, soldiers in silver armor took their positions. Preparing for the invasion, Lyra's generals gathered around a holographic map. High Council forces will reach the city in minutes, one of them said. Lyra nodded. Evacuate the non-combatants. Seal all northern tunnels. Ethan turned to her. His expression serious. What about us? He asked. Lyra looked at him, her eyes bright with determination. We fight, she said simply. A loud roar echoed through the sky as the first enemy ships broke through the atmosphere. They began to rain plasma fire across the city, lighting up the skyline with orange and blue flames. Ethan raised his hand and a wave of blue energy erupted from his palm. The blast struck one of the ships, throwing it off course. He gasped. Shocked by the strength that had come so easily, Lyra looked at him with awe. Your control is growing, she said. Ethan nodded slowly. It's like the power knows what I need before I do. Lyra smiled faintly. That is the Heir's instinct. The power of creation and protection. The ground shook again as the Council's troops landed outside the city walls. Tanks with glowing energy cores rolled across the plains, followed by dark drones that screamed through the air. Lyra led Ethan down the steps into the main defense corridor. Her soldiers bowed as she passed, their armor glowing with her family's royal insignia. Ethan watched them and whispered, They still believe in you. Lyra looked at him sadly. Belief can turn to fear quickly if we fail. Moments later, the city gates exploded open. The enemy poured in. Soldiers in black armor with crimson visors. The air filled with the sounds of battle, energy blasts and steel clashing. Ethan ran beside Lyra, deflecting enemy fire with waves of blue light. He moved like he had done this all his life, the Heir's energy guiding his every step. A soldier tried to strike Lyra from behind, but Ethan caught the weapon mid-air. The force of the impact cracked the ground beneath him. Lyra turned, eyes wide. You're not just channeling the Heir's power, Ethan. You're becoming its guardian. He didn't know what to say. He only knew one thing. He had to keep her safe. Hours passed and the battle grew worse. The city's energy shields flickered, entire towers collapsing under the relentless assault. From the command bridge, Counselor Vera watched with cold satisfaction. Bring them alive if possible, he ordered. The human's body must not be destroyed. Back in the city, Lyra and Ethan reached the central tower. It was the heart of Alaris, where the ancient power core of the planet rested. If the enemy captured it, the entire city would fall. Lyra placed her hand on the core's control panel. The giant crystal pulsed with light, spreading blue energy through the walls. She looked at Ethan and said softly, This city runs on the same energy that flows inside you. If you connect with it, you can shield the people. Ethan hesitated. Connect? I don't even know how. Lyra smiled faintly. You don't have to know, you just have to feel. He took a deep breath, placing his hands on the crystal. Instantly, the power roared to life, blinding blue light filling the entire chamber. Visions of stars, galaxies, and forgotten worlds flashed before his eyes. He could hear voices, ancient, echoing, calling his name, Ethan Cole, guardian of the air, protector of the balance. Outside, the sky changed. A massive wave of blue energy erupted from the city, forming a shimmering shield that covered everything. Enemy fire struck the barrier and dissolved into harmless light. Lyra watched in amazement, her heart full of pride and fear. The soldiers cheered as the shield held strong. But Ethan's body trembled. The energy was too much. Lyra rushed to him, grabbing his arm. Ethan! Stop! You're burning out! He gritted his teeth, sweat pouring down his face. I can hold it, he said. I have to. Lyra shook her head. Not alone. She placed her hand over his. Adding her power to his, the two energies merged. Blue and gold light swirling together like twin suns. Their connection deepened, their minds touching for a brief moment. In that moment, Ethan felt her memories, her childhood, her crown, her loneliness, and she saw his and Earth. The stars, his fear, his strength, together. Their bond stabilized the power, and the city glowed brighter than ever before. But far above, Counselor Vera smiled. He turned to his generals and said coldly, Prepare the null weapon. A massive cannon unfolded from the flagship, glowing with dark energy. If I can't control the air, Vera said, I will erase it from existence down below. Lyra's eyes widened as she sensed the weapon's charge. They're going to fire, she shouted. Ethan looked up at the dark clouds where the flagship loomed. His energy flared, stronger than ever before. Let them try, he said. He stepped forward. his body glowing like a living star, Lyra beside him, her golden aura wrapping around his blue flame. Together they faced the sky as the beam of destruction began to fall. The fate of two worlds now hanging in a single heartbeat. The sky was burning. A storm of black energy gathered above the city, twisting and roaring like an angry god. The High Council's flagship hovered in the clouds, its massive cannon glowing with dark light below. Ethan and Lyra stood side by side on the highest tower of Ilaris, their bodies surrounded by shimmering energy. The ground shook as the weapon began to charge. Lyra looked at Ethan, her eyes full of fear and faith. "This is it," she said softly. "If that beam hits, everything ends." Ethan stared up at the sky, feeling the air's power pulsing inside his chest like a second heartbeat. "Then it won't hit," he said calmly. The air around them crackled as the cannon fired. A beam of black fire cut through the clouds, screaming as it fell toward the city. Ethan closed his eyes and raised his hands. The blue light inside him exploded outward, wrapping the city in a shield of pure energy. The two forces collided, filling the sky with blinding light. The shockwave tore through the air, bending towers, shattering windows, shaking mountains. Lyra screamed his name, but Ethan stood firm. The energy of the air burned through his veins like molten fire. Pain filled his body, but his mind stayed clear. He heard the air's voice within him, calm, ancient, powerful. Protect the bond. Protect the balance. Lyra placed her hands over his, her golden aura joining his blue flame. Their powers merged again, swirling like twin galaxies. The beam of destruction split apart, turning into streams of harmless light that rained across the city like falling stars. The people below watched in awe as the storm faded. When the light cleared, Ethan fell to one knee, breathing hard. Smoke rose from his skin, his body trembling. Lyra caught him before he collapsed. "Ethan, stay with me," she cried. He looked up at her weakly, a faint smile on his lips. "You see," he whispered, "I told you." It wouldn't hit. Above them, the flagship broke apart, its engines failing. Counselor Vera watched from the bridge, his face twisted in disbelief. "Impossible," he muttered. "No power could resist that." Then the ship split in two and fell, vanishing into the storm clouds below. The city erupted in cheers as the remaining enemy ships turned away. The war was over, but in the heart of the tower, the air's power was still alive, pulsing inside Ethan like a sun trying to be born. Lyra laid him down gently, her tears glowing in the light. "You did it," she whispered. "You saved us all." Ethan looked at her and smiled faintly. "No," he said softly. "We did." She touched his face, her hand trembling. "The air's energy is unstable," she said. "If it leaves your body too fast, it could destroy you." Ethan's eyes flickered with light. "Maybe it's time," he said. Lyra shook her head. "Don't you dare say that." He took her hand, his voice gentle. "If I go, then the worlds will finally be free. That's worth something." The tower's light grew brighter, the power core beneath them humming like a heartbeat. The air shimmered, and a sphere of golden blue energy rose between them. It pulsed softly, warm and peaceful. Lyra gasped. "The air," she whispered. "It's alive." The light drifted closer. Wrapping around Ethan's body, he smiled faintly. "Looks like our child wants to see the stars." Lyra's tears fell as she felt the energy touch her. A deep calm filled the room, the sound of war replaced by a soft hum of life. The air's energy spread through the city, healing the wounded, mending the broken towers. The people of Ilaris looked up in wonder as their world was reborn. In the sky, two suns rose side by side, one golden, one blue. It was the sign of renewal, the beginning of unity. Lyra held Ethan close as his glow began to fade. His voice was weak but peaceful. "Promise me you'll lead them." "Lyra," she nodded, tears falling like rain. "I promise." He smiled. "Then my job is done." The light surrounded him, lifting him gently into the air. And in that final moment, he looked down at her and whispered, "For the first time, we are one." A wave of light swept across the land. Every ship, every weapon, every wound, then all dissolved into calm silence. When the light faded, Ethan was gone. Only the faint hum of the air's energy remained. Lyra stood alone on the tower, her golden robe glowing in the morning light. She looked toward the stars and whispered his name. "Ethan Cole, guardian of the air." From that day on, peace returned to the Empire. Humans and aliens began to rebuild together. Their old fears fading with time, Lyra became the first ruler of the United Worlds, and above her throne, the royal seal glowed with two lights, blue for the human, gold for the alien. Years later, they would call that day the birth of a new empire. A day when one human's courage changed the fate of two galaxies. A day when love, faith, and sacrifice brought harmony to the stars. And though Ethan was gone, every sunrise over Alaris carried his light, a reminder that even across worlds, humanity's heart could shine brighter than any star.